She collapsed just after her last customer stepped away from register 4. Some asked if she was okay. Most just kept walking. That night, someone found her notebook, filled with notes to nearly every regular. People thought they knew her, but that notebook showed just how much she knew them. If stories about quiet heroes speak to you, stick around. This one stays with you. The fluorescent lights hummed their familiar tune above register 4, casting their sterile glow on a Tuesday afternoon at Fresh Mart that felt like any other. Renee Brown smoothed her blue vest and smiled at the approaching customer, Mrs. Bell, clutching her small basket with arthritic fingers. "Good afternoon, Mrs. Bell," Renee said, her voice carrying the warmth of someone who genuinely meant it. "How's Mr. Whiskers doing with his new diet?" The elderly woman's face brightened. "Oh, Renee, you remember everything. He's doing much better. Thank you for asking." She placed 3 cans of soup and a loaf of bread on the conveyor belt. "The vet said his weight is finally under control." Renee nodded as she scanned each item, her movements practiced and efficient. When the bread came up at full price instead of the advertised discount, she didn't hesitate. Her fingers danced across the register keys, applying the markdown without mentioning it. Small kindnesses like this had become second nature over her 15 years behind this counter. "That'll be $8.47, dear," she said. But her keen eyes had already noticed Mrs. Bell fumbling through her purse with trembling hands. Without a word, Renee reached into her small stack of coupons. One she'd quietly collected and saved, and applied another dollar off. "Oh my, $7.47. That's perfect," Mrs. Bell said, counting out exact change. "You always take such good care of me, Renee." As Mrs. Bell shuffled away with her bags, Renee felt a familiar flutter in her chest. It had been happening more frequently lately, a racing heartbeat that seemed to skip and stumble. She pressed her palm against her ribs and took a slow breath, willing it to settle. Just stress, she told herself, nothing more. The afternoon rush began to build. Frank Morrison approached her line, his usual scowl softened by the hint of something almost resembling a smile. 6 months ago, he'd been just another silent customer, grunting his way through transactions. Now he actually spoke to her, ever since she'd noticed the dog food in his cart and asked about his pet. "Afternoon, Frank. How's Buddy today?" "Old dog's doing all right," Frank replied, his gruff voice carrying an unexpected gentleness. "Actually wanted to thank you for that recommendation about the joint supplements. Vet says they're helping." Renee's smile was genuine as she scanned his items. "I'm so glad to hear that. My neighbor's golden retriever had similar issues, and those supplements worked wonders for him too." It was a small lie. She didn't have a neighbor with a golden retriever, but she'd spent her own break time researching dog joint health online. After Frank had mentioned Buddy's arthritis, some kindnesses required a little creativity. Behind Frank, a young mother wrestled with her toddler while balancing a full cart. Renee caught the woman's eye and offered an encouraging smile. "Take your time, honey. We've all been there." The flutter in her chest returned, stronger this time. Renee gripped the edge of the counter, her knuckles white beneath her practiced smile. The store seemed to tilt slightly, the fluorescent lights growing brighter and more intense. "You okay, Renee?" Frank's voice seemed to come from far away. She wanted to answer, wanted to reassure him with her usual warmth. Instead, the world went gray around the edges, and she felt herself falling backward, the last thing she heard being the distant sound of her name being called. When Renee opened her eyes, she was lying on the break room couch, surrounded by concerned faces. Her manager, Jana, knelt beside her with a glass of water. Nico, the 18-year-old bagger who'd been working there for 6 months, hovered nearby with worried dark eyes. "The paramedics are on their way," Jana said gently. "You gave us quite a scare." "I'm fine," Renee protested, trying to sit up. "Really, I just got a little lightheaded. I can get back to work." "Absolutely not." Janet's voice was firm but kind. "You're going to get checked out, and then you're taking some time off. Doctor's orders." As the paramedics arrived and began their gentle interrogation about her symptoms, Renee felt a deep embarrassment settle over her. In 15 years, she'd never missed a day for illness. She prided herself on being reliable, steady. Now she was the center of attention, and it felt all wrong. The diagnosis came the next day: stress-induced arrhythmia, likely exacerbated by exhaustion and poor nutrition. The doctor, a kind woman about Renee's age, spoke gently but firmly about the need for rest, better eating habits, and reduced stress. "Have you been skipping meals?" the doctor asked, reviewing her charts. Renee looked away. "Sometimes I get busy." The truth was harder. Renee had quietly skipped meals to stretch her budget. Small sacrifices that caught up with her. That week, home felt less like rest and more like confinement. She called in after 2 days, but Jana gently insisted, "Take the time you need. We've got it covered." But did they? Renee couldn't help but wonder. Who would help Mrs. Bell read the fine print? Would Frank slip back into silence without their daily chats? And the Ramirez family? Would anyone catch the quiet signs when they needed a coupon or a discreet discount? At Fresh Mart, Renee's absence was quietly jarring. Mrs. Bell returned to register for, only to be met with a brisk temp who skinned without a word. When the bread rang up full price, there was no gentle correction. Frank wandered to her empty lane before realizing she wasn't there. The new cashier rushed through his items, never once asking about Buddy. Both left feeling the emptiness she used to fill. It was Nico who first put words to what everyone was feeling. During his break, he sat in the employee lounge staring at Renee's empty chair, and something clicked. He'd been watching customers all week, seeing their confused glances toward register for, their disappointed expressions when they realized she wasn't there. "It's like the heart of the store is missing," he said to Emily, another cashier, during their overlapping break. "She's just really good at her job," Emily replied, but even she sounded uncertain. "No," Nico said slowly, "it's more than that. Have you noticed how many people ask about her? Mrs. Bell asked me 3 times yesterday if I knew when Renee was coming back. And Frank, the grumpy guy with the dog food, actually looked sad when he realized she wasn't here." Emily nodded thoughtfully. "The Ramirez family, too. They've been shopping here for years. But they looked so lost without her." That afternoon, Nico made a decision that would change everything. He approached Mrs. Bell. As she struggled with her bags in the parking lot, "Excuse me, Mrs. Bell, I'm Nico. I work inside with Renee." The elderly woman smiled. "Oh yes, dear, you're the nice boy who helps with carts. Do you know when Renee will be back?" "She's recovering," Nico said gently. "But would you mind telling me what makes her special to you?" Mrs. Bell's eyes softened. "She remembers everything: my cat's name, my soup preferences, when my hands ache from arthritis. But more than that, once, during a downpour, she left her register just to walk me to my car with an umbrella. Got soaked herself." Nico was quiet. "She did that? She always knows when someone's having a hard day." In the days that followed, Nico heard more stories. Frank, gruff and hesitant, finally opened up. "I hadn't spoken to anyone in months after my wife died. Renee just kept asking about my dog. Buddy, she never gave up on me." Maria Ramirez, a young mom, recalled moments of quiet grace. "There were days I couldn't afford all my groceries. Renee always found a coupon or remembered a sale. She never made me feel ashamed, and she taught my daughter to count change, made it fun." One by one, the stories piled up, quiet kindnesses stitched into daily life, and Nico began to understand just how much one cashier could mean. Each story Nico heard painted a fuller picture of Renee Brown. She wasn't just processing transactions. She was creating moments of human connection in a world that often felt impersonal and cold. She was remembering birthdays, celebrating small victories, offering comfort during difficult times. But there was something else Nico discovered that broke his heart. Cleaning out the employee break room, he found a small notebook that had fallen behind Renee's usual chair. Inside, written in her careful handwriting, were dozens of entries. "Mrs. Bell, Tuesday regular. Cat Mr. Whiskers, arthritis worse in cold weather. Granddaughter graduating college in May. Frank Morrison, lost wife Martha 2 years ago. Dog Buddy Golden Lab mix, joint problems. Needs extra patience. Ramirez family, budget tight end of month. Daughter Emma for years, loves stickers. Dad works 2 jobs." Page after page, Nico found notes, birthdays, preferences, quiet struggles. Renee hadn't just done her job. She had memorized lives. Holding the worn notebook, he realized she'd turned ordinary moments into something deeply human. Her register hadn't been a station, it had been a lifeline. That evening, Nico couldn't shake the weight in his chest. Renee's absence lingered like a missing note in a familiar song. By morning, the decision had settled quietly in him. Later that day, he approached Jana with a proposal. "I want to do something for Renee," he said. "And I think the customers do too." Jana listened as Nico explained his idea. A thank you board in the break room where customers could leave notes for Renee. Nothing elaborate, just a way for people to express what her kindness had meant to them. "I think that's lovely, Nico," Jana said. "Go ahead." The board started small, just a poster board with "Thank you, Renee" written across the top. But words spread quickly. Mrs. Bell was the first to contribute. Writing in shaky handwriting, "You make every trip to the store feel like visiting a friend. Thank you for caring about Mr. Whiskers and for always making sure I stay dry in the rain." Frank's note was shorter, but no less meaningful. "You brought me back to the world when I thought I was done with people. Buddy and I are grateful." Maria Ramirez brought her daughter Emma, who drew a picture of herself and Renee at the register, both of them smiling. Maria's note read, "You taught my daughter that kindness is always possible, even in small moments. You've taught me that too." By the end of the week, the single poster board had grown into an entire wall. Customer after customer had stopped by to add their voice to the growing chorus of gratitude. There were stories Nico had never heard, kindnesses he never could have imagined. "You helped me practice English when I first moved here. Always patient when I couldn't find the right words. You never made me feel rushed, even when there was a long line behind me. You noticed when I stopped buying ice cream and asked if I was okay. I was going through a rough time, and just having someone notice meant everything." Jana stood before the wall, reading note after note, and felt tears prick her eyes. In all her years in retail management, she'd never seen anything like this. She'd known Renee was a good employee, reliable and kind. But this was something extraordinary. Meanwhile, at her doctor's office, Renee received the news she'd been hoping for. Her heart rhythm had stabilized. She was cleared to return to work, but only with reduced hours. "The most important thing," her doctor said, "is to take care of yourself. You can't pour from an empty cup." Renee nodded, though the thought of reduced hours unsettled her. She needed the income and the purpose. Home felt too quiet, too far from the lives that had come to matter. On Monday morning, Renee returned to Fresh Mart. She dressed carefully, wanting to project strength and normalcy. The last thing she wanted was for people to worry about her or treat her differently. Jana met her at the employee entrance with a warm smile. "Welcome back, Renee. We've missed you terribly. How are you feeling?" "I'm fine," Renee said quickly, perhaps too quickly. "Completely fine. It was nothing serious. Just a little dizzy spell. I'm ready to get back to my full schedule." Jeanette's expression grew gentle but firm. "The doctor recommended reduced hours, remember? We've adjusted your schedule too." "I don't need reduced hours," Renee interrupted, a hint of desperation creeping into her voice. "I'm perfectly capable of working my normal shifts. I've been doing this job for 15 years without any problems." The truth was harder than she let on. Reduced hours meant less pay, and medical bills had drained her savings. She kept recalculating, but pride wouldn't let her ask for help. "Renee," Jana said softly, "we're not questioning your capability. We're just concerned about your health." "There's nothing to be concerned about," Renee replied, forcing brightness into her voice. "It was a what-I'm thing. Let's just get back to normal, okay?" Jana hesitated, clearly wanting to say more, but nodded. "Actually, there's something I want to show you first." She led Renee to the break room, and when they rounded the corner, Renee stopped dead in her tracks. The entire back wall was covered with notes, drawings, and messages. At the center, in large letters, someone had written, "You're the reason we came back." Renee's hand flew to her mouth. What is this?" "It's what happened while you were gone," Jana said softly. "Nico started it, but it grew into something none of us expected. Read a few." With trembling hands, Renee read the notes, Mrs. Bell's kind words, Frank's quiet gratitude, Maria's message beside Emma's drawing. One by one, they revealed just how deeply she'd mattered. "I don't understand," she whispered, taking a step back from the wall. "I was just doing my job. This is too much." "No," said a voice behind her. She turned to see Nico standing in the doorway, his young face serious and kind. "You were doing so much more than that." He approached slowly, as if she might flee. "I found your notebook, Renee. The one where you keep track of everyone's stories." Renee felt heat rise in her cheeks, embarrassment flooding through her. "Oh, it's nothing. I just like to remember things. You shouldn't have read that." "Renee," Nico said gently, "you remember that Mrs. Bell's granddaughter is graduating college. You remember that Frank's dog has arthritis. You remember that the Ramirez family struggles at the end of the month. You remember because you care. And all these people, they care about you too." In the days that followed, the thank you wall kept growing, a quiet tribute to Renee's impact. But it was Mrs. Bell who sparked what came next, though it began with guilt. "This wall is beautiful," she told Nico, "but it made me realize Renee knows everything about me, and I know nothing about her." Nico hadn't thought of that, but her words hit hard. "Exactly," she said, her voice trembling. "She remembers my grandson's birthday, but I didn't even know she was sick. What does that say about me?" The guilt spread quietly through the regulars. Frank didn't bother softening his words. "I feel like garbage," he muttered. "She asked about my dog, listened to me talk about Martha. I never once asked how she was." Maria Ramirez agreed. "She taught Emma to count, remembered her favorite stickers, and I never even knew her last name." One by one, customers echoed the same truth. Renee had given endlessly, and they'd never thought to give anything back. Then Mrs. Bell noticed something else. "She's thinner." She mentioned once she lived on Oak Street. "That can't be easy on a cashier's pay." Nico's concern deepened. Quiet conversations with co-workers confirmed it. Renee skipped lunch, picked up extra shifts, and always packed the same modest meal. While caring for everyone else, she'd been silently struggling herself. Surprisingly, it was Frank who proposed a solution. She'd never ask for help. "But that doesn't mean we can't give it." He hesitated, eyes heavy with regret. "When Martha was sick, people helped us whether we asked or not. Sometimes that's what community means." Mrs. Bell nodded. "We've been taking from her for years without realizing it. It's time we gave something back." Nico felt a mix of inspiration and panic. "What did you have in mind?" "A fund," Frank said simply. "Nothing flashy, just folks giving what they can, especially now." The idea caught fire. Mrs. Bell, on a fixed income, insisted on contributing first. Frank surprised everyone with a generous amount. The Ramirez family, struggling themselves, added a small donation anyway. Nico set up a discreet collection jar near customer service, with a hand-lettered sign explaining the goal: to support Renee during her recovery. With no fuss or fanfare, customers responded in droves. But more than money, they wanted to connect. "I want to do something more personal," Mrs. Bell said. "Something that shows we care about her as a person, not just as someone who helps us." "What if we shared our stories?" suggested Maria. "She knows so much about us. Maybe we should let her know us too." The idea blossomed. Alongside the fund, customers began writing personal notes, introductions, memories, confessions. Mrs. Bell wrote about her late husband. Frank shared his grief. Maria talked about Emma's future. Within 2 weeks, they'd raised enough to cover months of expenses and gathered a chorus of voices that finally gave back to the woman who'd always given first. Jana had the final piece. "We'll keep it simple. Coffee, flowers, a quiet gathering. Frame it as a welcome back. The money is just one part." That Saturday, Renee arrived for her shift to find the store subtly transformed. A bouquet near her register, a coffee station in the break room, customers lingering with smiles. "What's all this?" she asked, suspicious. "I told everyone. No fuss. Just a little appreciation day," Jana said gently. "The customers wanted to welcome you back." Renee offered a small smile, but her voice was quiet. "I was only gone a week. You don't need to make a big deal. It just makes me feel fragile." But as the morning wore on, something shifted. Customers came not just with greetings, but with something deeper: connection. Mrs. Bell approached with her usual basket, but lingered. "Renee, dear, I realized something while you were gone," she said, voice trembling. "You know everything about my life, but I don't know anything about yours. I didn't even know your last name." Renee blinked. "Mrs. Bell, that's not—" "It is," she said softly. "My name is Dorothy. Dorothy Bell. I was married to Robert for 43 years. I have two grandkids, Emma, who's graduating, and Michael, who just turned 7. I live alone now, and sometimes I come here just because I'm lonely. And you always make me feel less alone." The words hit harder than Renee expected. For years, she'd known Mrs. Bell as a customer. Now, Dorothy Bell stood in front of her, not a transaction, but a person. Frank was next, clearly uncomfortable. "Frank Morrison," he said. "I've been coming through your line for what, 3 years? Never once asked your name. Never asked how you were doing." He shifted, awkward. "I treated you like a therapist, not a person. I'm sorry." "Frank, you don't need to." "Yeah, I do," he said gently. "You listened to me talk about Martha and Buddy for months. I never once asked about you." "That's not right." By lunchtime, Renee was overwhelmed. Customer after customer introduced themselves, shared pieces of their lives, apologized for taking without giving. And then the final moment arrived. Jana approached with an envelope, a small group behind her, Nico among them, beaming and nervous. "Renee," she began, "I know you didn't want to fuss, but we want you to understand something." Renee tensed. "My finances are private. I don't need—" "Please," Nico said gently, "just listen." He stepped forward, holding a thick folder. "When I started collecting thank you notes, people wanted to do more. They realized they'd never really seen you. They wanted to change that. Inside were dozens of personal stories, real names, shared memories, introductions, and beneath them, records of a fund that had grown larger than anyone expected. "We raised money," Frank said, stepping up, "a lot of it, because you've been taking care of us for years. And it's time we took care of you." Jana handed her the envelope. Renee opened it. Her breath caught. The check inside was more than she made in 3 months. "I can't accept this," she whispered, trembling. "This is charity. I don't take charity." "It's not charity," Dorothy said, tears streaming. "It's community, it's love, and it's overdue." "You've been struggling, haven't you?" Maria asked softly. "Picking up shifts, skipping meals, trying to make ends meet. We should have seen it. We should have asked." Renee's eyes filled. "I don't want pity. I've always taken care of myself. I don't need—" "We know you don't," Frank interrupted gently. "That's exactly why this matters. You don't need help, but you deserve it. You've given so much. We just didn't see it until now." Renee looked at the faces surrounding her, people whose names and stories she knew by heart, who had quietly become her family. "I don't know what to say," she whispered. "Just say you'll keep being you." Someone called from the crowd. "That's all we need." Renee clutched the envelope to her chest. "Always," she said, voice soft but certain. "Always." As the crowd began to disperse, each person stopping to squeeze her hand or offer a quiet thank you, Renee felt something shift. For 15 years, she'd seen herself as just an employee, someone paid to process transactions and keep the line moving. But now she knew better. She was the keeper of stories, the thread stitching together 100 strangers into something resembling family. Proof that the person behind the counter might be the one holding your day together. That ordinary work, done with care, could become something sacred. That evening, Renee sat in her apartment with the thank you notes spread across her table, rereading them slowly. She thought of the notebook Nico had found, all her quiet observations, scribbled in the margins of her day. It had embarrassed her at first, seemed silly, but now she saw it for what it was, a record of her decision to truly see people, to remember them, to show up in small but lasting ways. Her phone buzzed. "Thank you for teaching me that every person matters. I'm going to try to be more like you, Nico." She smiled. A warmth spread through her chest that had nothing to do with her condition. She'd always thought her impact was small, invisible. But the wall of notes and the faces from earlier told a different story. Sometimes the biggest changes happen quietly, between a hello and a goodbye. In the moment someone feels seen, sometimes the person doing the saving doesn't even realize it. And sometimes, a community reveals itself not in grand gestures, but in the slow, steady rhythm of kindness. Renee Brown returned to work Monday with a lighter heart. She was still the cashier at Register 4, still scanning items, still wearing her blue vest, but now she understood something she hadn't before. She was the heart of a community, the proof that everyday heroics don't always look like emergencies. Sometimes they look like remembering someone's name, like noticing. The fluorescent lights still hummed above Register 4, but somehow the sound felt warmer. As Renee smoothed her vest and smiled at the first customer of the day, she knew this was exactly where she was meant to be.